Ciao, everyone, and welcome back to Experience Italy with Friends. In today's episode, we'll talk about the metropolitan city of Milan and the beautiful area of Lake Como. While the two destinations couldn't be more different, they are often side by side in an itinerary for visiting the region of Lombardy. We'll discuss everything you need to know to get the most out of these destinations during your trip to Italy. Let's get started. Andiamo! Experience Italy with Friends is a travel and lifestyle podcast where we will explore our favorite destinations and hidden gems, share key travel tips and cultural insights, and provide real-time updates about our move to this remarkable country. Join me, Tanya Razzo, an Italian travel expert and founder of Amici Vacations, and my Italian husband and producer, Davide Razzo, on a journey that is sure to inspire you and prepare you to create immersive and authentic experiences of your own in the beautiful country of Italy. Hello again to our listeners all over the world. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. I'm your host, Tanya, and I'm here with my husband, co-host, and producer, Davide.
Ciao a tutti gli amici.
Today's episode will showcase Milan and Lake Como. As we mentioned in our episode on the Italian Riviera, we made a quick trip to Lake Como at the end of March, and were reminded of its splendor. It is so beautiful. Both destinations are also included in a number of trips I've recently been working on, so it seemed timely to discuss what we know about them. It's going to be another jam-packed episode, so stay tuned.
Well, it's been another 2 weeks since our last episode, and before we dive into our topic today, let's give you an update on what we've been up to. First, what did we do, Tanya?
Well, we celebrated Easter, and I'm not going to talk about it too much because we covered it in our last episode, but we enjoyed gorgeous weather that weekend, and we were so lucky to be invited to our favorite winery, Le Berne, for a quick Easter breakfast. And then we went to Borgo San Vincenzo for a lovely lunch, and gosh, it was amazing. We had lamb as the entree, and I love a good cooked lamb recipe. So I don't know. I had a really great time eating that morning and afternoon, and we came home so stuffed.
I already forgot what the primo piatto was. Okay, so then what else did we do?
Well, we've been really enjoying spending some time in the Val d'Orcia. I mean, again, spring around here is so beautiful, and we went to go check out La Foce. It's a favorite very little town just south of here, and it offers spectacular views of the rolling hills and the cypress trees, and we hadn't been there since October, so it was awesome to see it in spring. And then we stopped over to see the little town of Montechiello. This is a small walled village just southeast of Pienza and southwest of Montepulciano, and it's so charming. And to be honest, like, my favorite thing that we did was just sitting in the outside cafe, just outside the main wall of the town. And it has such great views of the hills, and you can see Pienza in the distance. And it was so relaxing and lovely.
Yeah, I actually got out with my bike and I biked through that area, and it's so gorgeous. I'm really enjoying my biking here. So it's hilly, but I do enjoy it.
It's a good workout, but it's worth it for the views.
Yes.
Well, and then we also finally stopped into the town of San Quirico d'Orcia. And I say finally because I feel like we've driven by it so many times, and I don't know why we haven't stopped before. I feel like we're always in a hurry to get somewhere, but we finally stopped, and we actually went twice over the last 2 weeks. And it's a gorgeous little town. It has nice gardens. It's very walkable, a lot flatter than Montepulciano, and a lot of great shops. And, on one of our visits, a friend from San Gimignano joined us, and, she commented that there were more normal shops versus what you find either in San Gimignano or Montepulciano. And, what we mean by that is our towns are a little bit more touristy, and the shops are geared toward tourists. And so it was fun to be kind of in a town in the Val d'Orcia that was still catering a little bit more to locals, and very nice. And, the views from San Quirico are beautiful. And there was a wine event, and that was actually what prompted us to go back for a return, is we learned about it during our first visit. And again, it was fun to kind of like walk around the the town hall, and all the different local vineyards were there, and we could try their wines. And I was surprised to see a lot more white wines. They had Sauvignon Blanc, Gewürztraminer, Rosé, Moscato, Trebbiano, Viognier. I mean, Davide, you're the wine lover between the two of us more. So
Yeah, I mean,
what did you think?
These wines are classified Vini d'Orcia. So those are wines that are in between the denomination of Montepulciano, so Vini Nobili di Montepulciano, and the district of Montalcino. So they have their own denomination, Vini d'Orcia. And the red wines were mostly, Sangiovese based, but other varieties were available as well. But the white wines were kind of the dominant.
I
one,
have to say, and I'm not usually a white wine drinker, but I love a good Sauvignon Blanc, and the few that we tried there were great, and I'm actually drinking one right now.
Yeah, and we made some friends to go visit, right, Tanya?
Yes, love it. And then you went to Switzerland for a few days.
Yeah, I went to Switzerland. My buddy, St. Paul Peterson, played in Bern with Candy Dolfer. So I went there to visit him, to see him play. And then also visiting with my friends in Basel. And
you had a fondue. I saw a picture of fondue.
I had a fondue and other goodies, but I brought some goodies back. So
yes, I'm enjoying the Swiss chocolate right now.
There you go.
But while you were having fun, I was here being very productive.
Well, really? It's your busy season, huh?
It is actually. I mean, I have a lot of client trips taking place at the same time. So many more are about to start, and then a couple of new ones rolling in for the summer. So it's busy. I love it, but it's been a little crazy around here. So I enjoyed a few days without you that I could put my head down and just work. And then, to throw in some fun, well, actually not so fun, but big world event. The Pope sadly passed away, and his funeral took place in Rome. And why I say it threw a little bit of fun into the mix is that I had clients there that weekend, and so needed to react to move some things around. But wow, I was afraid things were going to go crazy, but they all pretty much held together. Needed to move around a couple of tours, but wow, what a memorable experience for them. Like they said, it was super crowded, super busy, but iconic. I mean, this is a once in a lifetime kind of moment to be a part of an event like this. And so for them to just happen to be in Rome during this huge event and all the world leaders that arrived, it was wow. Wow. So I have to mention it because it's been on the news every single day, and just it felt very personal for me. Another personal event is our daughter turned 21 and took her friends to Amalfi. And so she's been studying in Florence. And, I bring this up mainly because it was a very high stakes planning job for me. Making this the perfect weekend for her. And I was rewarded with the quote, everyone said it was the best day of their lives. So that was a huge relief for me, but Amalfi always delivers. But thank goodness for great weather, and a huge thank you to our boating partner, Giancarlo. And, good people make all the difference in what I do. And I'm very thankful.
Yeah, I mean, Giancarlo surprised our daughter with a small cake on the boat. So they had cake on the boat and
they had a blast.
They had fun. So, well, okay, now, for real now, let's get into today's topic of Northern Italy, or Milano, Lake Como. But I have to ask, why did you decide to talk about Milan and Lake Como together and not separately? They're so different, Tanya.
Well, they are both in the region of Lombardy. No.
Okay, yes.
No, I mean, Milan and Lake Como, while they're very different from each other, they make a great combination for a trip to the region. And, I'm frequently asked if Milan is worth visiting. And, my personal opinion is that yes, it is, but only if you're already planning to be in the area or coming, for a specific event, such as Fashion Week. But if you're flying into Milan because of a great flight or cost, then yes, you should see Milan. If you want to go to Lake Como or neighboring, Piemonte region, then I think it would be amiss to not visit Milan. But if you're needing to choose between Milan and Venice, Florence, or Rome, it's hard to sell Milan. I mean, it's not that it's not amazing, but it just can't compete, in my opinion. So, most frequently clients first say they want to see Lake Como and they are flying into Milan. So I then naturally push them to spend time in the city because it is amazing. So now you see, we can't talk about visiting Lake Como without also talking about Milan. They go hand in hand for me.
Okay, I get it now. All right, you convinced me. So then the next question becomes, should they stay in Milan and make a day trip to Como, or stay in Como and make a day trip to Milan, or, stay in both places?
Well, the answer depends somewhat on logistics, but mostly on how long one wants to stay in Lake Como. If you only have a day to dedicate to seeing the lake, then it usually makes more sense to stay in Milan versus spend a night in each location and change hotels and lug your bags around. Also, Lake Como does not have much of a nightlife, so spending the night doesn't have too much to offer past 8 p.m., whereas Milan is like New York City. It doesn't sleep. So I've had trips where I start clients in Lake Como and then have them move to Milan for a night, which positions them to take the train to their next destination the following morning, as most trains to anywhere else in Italy, will go through Milan.
Yep.
But doing a day trip to Milan would make sense if you're spending a few days or a week in Lake Como, or if you're traveling by car and don't need to go through Milan when you're leaving. So it's kind of doing the reverse, spending a few days around the lake, then do a day trip into Milan to check out the key sites.
Okay, well, it looks like Milan and Lake Como are a package deal. But let's dive into each destination. And let's cover Milan first, or I'll call it Milano. What does one need to know about Milano?
Okay, well, let's begin with an overview. First, Milan is the second largest city in Italy. It's a large modern city, sort of like Italy's New York City. It's corporate Italy. Almost everything in Milan revolves around the fashion industry, and it is home to many fashion industry flagship stores. It was first founded by the Celtic tribes around 600 BC, and when the Romans conquered the city, it was renamed Mediolanum, the land in the middle. Thanks to Milan's strategic location in the middle of the fertile Po River Valley, it quickly became an important center for trade in the Roman Empire. Later, it also became its western capital. And, I used to think of Milan as just a great place to go shopping, but I reconnected with it in 2023. And, I love its combination of history and big city energy. The Piazza del Duomo feels a bit like New York City's Times Square. And, I compare it a lot to New York, but that's the vibe I get, even more so than, comparing Rome to New York City. I feel like Milan has more of that same sort of commercial, but mixed with historic vibe and energy as like New York.
Yeah, I mean, I always went to Milan just to do the shopping, to be honest, and maybe to go to a soccer game, but that's all I ever did in Milan. So I saw all the sightseeing that you're gonna talk about in a little bit, but other than that, that's how you described it. It's like New York City, the Italian New York City for me.
Yep. And, I know you want to tell the story about our first trip to Milan again, but I'm going to tell you to make it quick.
No, I think people should just go and hear it on episode 2. So if you want to hear our story about Milan and what we did there on our first dates, you can go and listen to episode 2. All right. Well, so outside of shopping, though, what is there to do in Milan? I mean, I mentioned that you're going to tell us what to do there now.
Yes, I will. And, there's actually quite a bit to do, and most of it is located in the center of Milan called the Centro Storico. And that is typically where I recommend staying. It is a little bit more expensive than going further out of the city, but again, for one night or two, you don't want to miss being in the heart of the action. So let's start with the Duomo. This marble cathedral is the symbol of Milan, and it is literally in the center of the city. Again, I like to compare it to New York City's Times Square. It's always hopping with people, and some event is always taking place there. The Duomo is a late Gothic masterpiece, made even more interesting by the fact that this style can't be seen anywhere else in Italy. I mean, it really is a unique church, and one of the things I love about it. The construction of the Milan Duomo spanned nearly 6 centuries, beginning in 1386 and concluding in 1965. Like, I learned that on a tour, and it blew me away that it took almost 600 years to complete.
What was the issue, do you think?
Well, it's just so intricate. There is so much going on. I mean, it's one of the world's largest churches. There are 135 spires and more statues on this building than any other in the world. 3,159 in total, according to our friendly internet.
Yikes.
The most famous of all of these is the Madonnina, Little Madonna, a copper statue of the Virgin Mary covered with 3,900 pieces of gold leaf. Like, it's right at the top of the Duomo. And, while the inside of the Duomo is impressive, it has 52 columns representing the weeks of the year. But my favorite part is the rooftop terrace. And, you can either climb it or take the elevator. And it's here that you can get a better look at the forest of spires and realize the detailed statues that are at the top of each one. I mean, it's so impressive. And so, like, if you're standing in the piazza, you see them, but they look just kind of bumpy and curvy and, decorative. But when you're up close to them, you're like, wow, these are like statues of people. And the detail is amazing. So you get to walk around the entire rooftop and look out across the city. But what's even more amazing is that on a clear day, you can see as far as the Alps and the Apennines. And I have a great picture of it. I was lucky to be there on a clear day. So
you.
I loved that whole experience. Like, when we had gone together, we didn't do that. It was just like, oh, there's the Duomo. Let's go shopping.
Exactly.
But it's beautiful. So I encourage everybody to visit at least the rooftop of the Duomo. And then just north of the Duomo begins all of the shopping. The Quadrilatero d'Oro district, the Golden Rectangle, is one of the world's most important fashion landmarks. It's considered the most exclusive and luxurious shopping district, not just in Italy, but the world. It is packed with high-end boutiques and brands like Prada, Gucci, Moschino, Versace, and Bulgari. Haute couture at every step, with all the brands one can expect. So I know that's on your list, right, Davide?
Yeah, of course. It was.
But then, just steps away from the Duomo is the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele II. And this shopping mall was created in 1877, and it is Italy's oldest active shopping gallery and often called the living room of Milan. Aside from the shopping, the building is an architectural wonder. I mean, it really is beautiful. It has a domed ceiling and all these elaborate mosaics. Today, it houses some of the most luxurious boutiques in Milan, such as Prada, Louis Vuitton, and Gucci. But it also has many restaurants and cafes, including some of the oldest establishments of Milan, such as Cafe Bifi, founded in 1867. And a little piece of trivia. Why don't you tell us about it, Davide?
Okay, so in the Galleria, under the central dome, there's a mosaic with the Savoy coat of arms and various animals that represent some of Italy's most important cities. There is also pictured a bull. And so according to a legend, visitors and locals will have good luck if you step on with the right foot on the bull, private, and turn 360 with their eyes closed. So if you step on the bull on the 31st of December at midnight, you will be lucky for a whole year.
The whole year?
Yeah, well, and we did that, and you cannot recollect that. And that was a little bit
have I offended
disappointing. So
I do not remember doing that with you, but I do remember when I was in 2023, I did it again. So, okay, so after shopping, just around the corner from the Galleria is the Teatro alla Scala. This theater was opened in 1778 and is one of the most famous opera houses in the world. Many famous operas have had their first production at La Scala, such as Otello, Nabucco by Verdi, or Madame Butterfly by Giacomo Puccini. La Scala is also known for its excellent acoustics and for being a cultural center of Milan's high society. Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Architecturally, it became a model of Italian theater that many other opera houses have imitated, with a horseshoe layout and multiple levels of boxes, a rich red interior, and an ivory parapet with golden decorations. And, when I'm learning that, I mean, that's true. That's most of what I've learned of, like, different theaters that I've been to in the world. But even if you're not an opera lover, catching a performance at the Teatro alla Scala is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. The problem is not only are tickets super pricey, but they sell out months and months in advance. However, if you visit the box office an hour before a show starts, any leftover or return tickets are sold at a 25% discount. So my tip is it doesn't hurt to go check.
Yeah, just go to the ticket office and maybe you're lucky. But go first to step on the bull's privates.
Oh, Davide. So also near this area, a nearby attraction is the Castello Sforzesco, the castle or fortress, depending on how you think about it. But it was built in the 15th century by Francesco Sforza, Duke of Milan, on the remnants of a 14th century fortification. Until the beginning of the 20th century, it was a symbol of power and the nobility used it as their residence. Over the centuries, various and complex transformations have been made. It has been a defended fortress, military barracks, a private residence, and the center of cultural institutions and museums. The castle now houses the museums of the Castello, with rarities such as the last masterpiece of Michelangelo, the unfinished Pieta Rondanini, and the frescoes by Leonardo da Vinci in Bramante. It has also extensive grounds and gardens. And, I did visit this also in 2023, and visiting it, I loved it because, to be honest, it's because of the Medici series on Netflix. And I'm such a fan. And many of the scenes were actually shot at the Sforzesco Castle whenever they were having collaborations or battles with, between Florence and Milan. And, I could just picture it as I was walking around, and I feel like that endeared me to the castle from that recent personal memory, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then, as you're continuing on our walking journey through the city center, just behind the castle starts the Parco Sempione, Milan's Central Park. Again, another comparison to New York City, but I'll also throw in Rome and the Villa Borghese Gardens as a comparison. It was built between 1890 and 1893, imitating a typical English garden. The park has an overall area of over 47 hectares.
Wow.
This wonderful place is beautifully landscaped and contains a myriad of footpaths, bike trails, wooden areas, together with play areas for the kids, many sculptures, and ornate fountains. So, very similar to, other city big parks in the world. But you can also find a museum in the park in the Torre Branca, which is a huge watchtower that offers panoramic views of the city. It's about 110 meters high, and it's one of the tallest structures in the city. So be sure to check that out.
So I just Googled quick how large the Central Park is in comparison, and it is 341 hectares, Central Park in New York.
Okay, so Sempione is quite a bit smaller.
Yes. It's still big, though. 47 hectares. Wow. Okay.
It is large. It's beautiful.
Okay, so I was looking forward. Next thing you're going to talk about is the next attraction, which I haven't seen, and I want to go see it.
You want to go see this?
Yes.
Okay, well, let me clue everybody else in, since I don't get to read ahead like you are. Another famous Milan attraction is Leonardo's Last Supper. It is one of the most celebrated and well-known artworks in the world, as it is considered to be Leonardo's masterpiece. It is located in its original place on the wall of the dining room of the former Dominican convent of Santa Maria delle Grazie, called the Cenacolo Vinciano. The original mural was painted between 1495 and 1497, and it's quite large. Like, it measures 640 centimeters by 880 centimeters. It's the entire wall of this dining room. And you need to know that it's difficult to get tickets. They get released quarterly, so I'm often waiting until midnight and buying tickets before they get swiped up by the tour operators. And if that's the case, then you need to book through an operator to go on a guided tour. I visited as part of a tour in 2023, and, I was really impressed. More impressive, though, to me was the story of how it was protected during the war and it was restored. And there's a lot of, great history that went into the efforts to protect and to preserve this masterpiece. And it is beautiful, and you can sit there, and so many people are just sitting there for like half an hour staring at it. Very impressive. And
yeah. So So I know that you had the chance to see another painting of the Last Supper that is actually here in Florence, painted by Domenico Ghirlandaio. So you saw both. Which one did you like better? Are there any big differences, or what do you think?
Well, what was surprising is actually in many ways they were similar because they were both painted in a cenacolo, a dining room on the far end wall. And, the main setup is similar. It's at the table, all of the apostles with Jesus. But I think the key difference is in the expressions on the apostles and how each artist interpreted what they believed the characteristics of the apostle during this last moment with Christ.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. Are there any other attractions, or what else is to say about Milan?
Well, outside of the key attractions I talked about, there are a couple of neighborhoods that I want to highlight for you. First is the Brera neighborhood, which is northwest of the Duomo, near the castle and the Parco Sempione. I think of it as similar to New York's Greenwich Village or Rome's Trastevere. It's considered to be more hip. It's very popular with young professionals and students. It boasts countless small boutiques and restaurants. So, I think of it as the perfect place to eat a memorable lunch or dinner or to have an aperitivo towards the evening. You'll find many appealing boutiques, galleries, and design stores where shopping doesn't feel like it's going to bankrupt you. So,
okay, that's good to know.
I would say it's the people's neighborhood.
All right.
Where the locals go, and it's very charming and quaint. So, definitely visit it. Next is the Navili neighborhood, which is quite a bit southwest of the Duomo. I mean, it took us about 40 minutes to walk there when I was there with my friend. And, it's a neighborhood that reminds me of Amsterdam, as it's built around a series of canals. And, you and I weren't even aware that it existed until I was doing research for a trip in 2022. And I was like, Davide, did you know that there were canals in Milan? How did we miss them?
Again, my Milan trips consisted of going to the center to do shopping or to go clubbing or to go see a soccer game.
So apparently the clubbing was not in the Navili district.
No.
So I made a point to go visit it in 2023. And again, it's one of the hipper, more youthful parts of Milan, great for people watching from, the various restaurants, bars, and gelateria that line the Naviglio Grande, the Grand Canal. And, it also has lots of shops, many art studios and little galleries down, hidden down side streets. Oh, I have to say that again. It has lots of shops, many art studios, and little galleries hidden down side streets. So again, it's very charming. And when I looked into it, and actually on our tour when we were at the castle, they mentioned that the canals were constructed by Leonardo da Vinci to make the building of the Duomo and the castle, easier because they had all these transportation of heavy materials to get through the city. So they built the canal so they could transport it by water. And I really enjoyed the area. It did feel a little bit like Amsterdam. I mean, you've got the canals, you've got these colorful buildings, and, it's best to go there at the end of the day. It's perfect for aperitivo when the light of the sunset kind of reflects off of the water. It's very romantic, and, the local life is starting in the numerous bars and restaurants. So very fun place to go hang out.
Yeah, well, okay. So speaking of aperitivo, let's switch some gears and let's talk about Milano's food and drinking culture.
Yes, it's actually a huge part of Milan. And, I know we talk about aperitivo a lot in all of our episodes. Recall it's Italy's version of happy hour. The tradition of aperitivo for Italy was actually born in the city of Milan. I don't know if everybody is aware of that. And, therefore, no trip to Milan is complete without partaking in the pre-dinner tradition.
So they invented the happy hour.
They did.
For the rest of the world.
They did, at least for Italy.
For the rest of the world.
But basically, cocktails are served with all manner of free nibbles. In current day, a lot of places are offering, a buffet with enough food to constitute a meal. So, look into those. And the most popular drinks are the classic Aperol Spritz or the stronger and less sweet Campari Spritz, which is actually your preference.
Yes, it is.
as well as the classic Negroni or the Negroni Sbagliato with sparkling wine instead of gin.
Yep.
I would say my favorite is the Aperol Spritz or the Ugo Spritz.
Yeah.
And, there are a ton of places to go enjoy aperitivo. Again, the two neighborhoods that I mentioned above are very popular. And, there are a lot of swanky places too. Like when I was there last, I went to Dolce & Gabbana's place called DG Martini, and very swanky and expensive drinks.
Yeah.
But I have to say my favorite is Il Bar on the top floor of the Rinascente department store, which is next to the Duomo. And, you sit there and you get a great view of the Duomo, the terrace that you were just on. And it's a very, amazing vibe. And you can do a little shopping on the way up or on the way down.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up is the food. Davide, why don't you talk a bit about the food and wine, as it's always your favorite subject?
Yeah, it's always my favorite topic. Let me just talk about some of the specialties that they create in Milano, such as, for example, the risotto alla milanese, which is a rice dish with a saffron inside. So it's a yellow rice, and it's very delicious. Then they also known for the cotoletta alla milanese. It's a cutlet, similar to a schnitzel, but some restaurants serve it actually with the bone, and it's quite large. And actually, it's thicker than the schnitzel that what we know, or how they do them in Germany.
So I watched a Stanley Tucci show just to cut in here, and I think there is a debate if the schnitzel originated in Italy, in Milan, or did it come from Germany or Switzerland?
I don't know. I really don't know, but...
well, I will let you know that Italy claims it as theirs.
Everybody claims everything. So anyway, so let's get to the next creation. I actually love this one. It's the ossobuco. It's alla milanese. Ossobuco is the it's the knee bone of the beef, and it has some meat around, and usually it's braised in white wine, and then with some veggies inside. And I cooked it a lot of times. I still am practicing to make it right, because it takes a long time to braise it, and that the sauce, the consistency remains kind of thicker and not thinner. So I'm still practicing on that one.
Okay, well, feel free to help yourself again.
Yeah. So then there's another one called the cazuela. It's a pork and a vegetable stew. Never had it, to be honest.
It sounds delicious. Like I'm a soup person.
I'm sure it is.
I love soup. So a hearty, thick stew, pork and vegetable sounds great.
Yeah. And then they have unique rolls of bread. They call them the michetas. It's a puffy, kind of puffed up, round-shaped roll. In other parts of Italy, they call it the rosetta. So it makes delicious sandwiches. So then minestrone, they have a minestrone alla milanese, which is a little bit different than in other regions, because they make the minestrone with a rice. Instead of, in other regions, they use some pasta. So I need to try that, or just maybe I need to make it. Then they have another meal called the mondeghili, which those are meatballs. Also never had it. And I also never had the arrostino annegato. It's also another typical recipe of Milano. Which is a slow cooked veal. So
it seems like they cook a lot with pork and veal.
Yeah.
As their traditional dishes.
Pork, veal, or beef. So then some side dishes they make. It's polenta. They're known for polenta. And then maybe a dessert drink. I had to look it up. It's called the barbaiada. It's a dessert drink with a chocolate coffee and either milk or cream. So yeah, that's
Sounds
about
delicious.
it for food. So as far as for wines, Milano doesn't have their own wines, but, you know, the region, the Lombardy, and as I said in other episodes, is known for the Franciacorta sparkling wines. So you might want to have a bubbly there for an aperitivo instead of an Aperol Spritz.
I can be talked into that.
All right.
Okay, well, let's finish our conversation about Milan talking about its festivals. So the first festival of the year is actually held in April, and it's the furniture fair, the Salone del Mobile Milano, and it showcases, one of the largest trade fairs of its kind. I wasn't aware of that. But I think this next one that takes place in September is world renowned, the Milan Fashion Week. And although it's not a festival, people from all around the world find themselves swarming around Milan for the iconic Fashion Week and all of the new fashion releases of the season. And this next one, I'm sure, is of interest to you, Davide, given that you like to watch car racing. It's the Italian Grand Prix. It's an annual sporting event. It's also held in September, the first week of September.
Yeah, which takes place in Monza, which is a little suburb of Milano, north of Milano. And it's one of the biggest sports events in Italy, period.
Impressive. Didn't know that.
Okay, wow, that was a lot of information about Milan. I don't believe you came up with all this information.
Well, are you convinced you want to go back and revisit it?
Maybe. So, yeah, maybe we should go back to Milan.
I think
I want to go see another soccer game.
Okay.
Anyway, so let's go to Lake Como now, okay? Because we were there a couple of weeks ago. Tell us.
Okay, well, let's begin with an overview of the lake. So, Lake Como is about an hour north of Milan, and much of the lake is also pretty close to the Swiss border. And I had to look that up again because I was thinking the Swiss border would have been just north of the lake, but it actually is almost not too far away from its entire western border or shoreline, and also north. So a good part of the lake is pretty close to Switzerland. It is the third largest Italian lake after Lake Garda and Lake Maggiore, and it's also one of the deepest lakes in Europe. Now, its location at the foot of the Alps means it offers some of the most picturesque scenery in the world. And, whenever I'm there, it reminds me a lot of the lakes and mountains in Switzerland that I loved when, we lived there years ago. It's so vibrant yet peaceful, and that was my first reaction to going there. I remember I was there by myself. You hadn't gone, and I texted you, I think I'm in Switzerland. I'd say Switzerland. So, it makes sense, obviously, because it's right next to Switzerland.
Yeah.
And to kind of help you visualize it, the shape of Lake Como is unique because it's in an inverted letter Y, kind of an upside down Y. And this was created by the melting glaciers combined with the erosion of the ancient Adda River. And, the Alps are at the north end and are the most majestic and prominent feature on the lake. But the entire lake is surrounded by mountains, though they tend to feature more terraced hills versus the high peaks of the Alps in the north. And of course, Lake Como has become more known and famous since George Clooney bought a villa on the western shore in Lalio, and most recently went up for sale, so may not be his for a long time. I don't know if it's sold yet, so if anyone's on the market for $100 million villa.
Yeah, I heard other things about the Clooneys lately, so I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I really wish
I'm not
them
going
all
to
the
touch
best.
on those. But let's talk about the popular towns of Lake Como. And there are 6 of the main ones, though the entire shoreline is dotted with a ton of villages. But let's start with Bellagio. It's often called the Pearl of Lake Como, and it's known for its cobbled streets, its elegant villas, and beautiful gardens. And it's located at the intersection of the lake's 3 branches, so kind of in the middle of the upside down Y. Mm-hmm. Then across from one of those branches is Varenna. It's on the east side. It's a quieter, romantic town with colorful houses, lakeside promenades, and attractions like the Villa Monastero and the Castello di Vezio. Then there is the city of Como. It's the largest town on the lake. I mean, it's more of a city with a mix of historical sites like the Como Cathedral, shops and restaurants. And from here, you can have, quick access to the funicular up to Bernate for some, panoramic views and some hiking.
Nice.
I haven't been to the city of Como myself, but I do want to check it out.
I've been there to shop for my tuxedo when we got married.
I don't know if I remember
Yep.
that. Next as a popular village is Menaggio. It's a relaxed town with a scenic promenade. It's really known for its great hiking opportunities and its ferry access to other towns. And this one is really, loved by different nature lovers and hikers and bikers. Then there is the town of Tremeso, known for the Villa Carlotta with its stunning botanical gardens, an art collection, as well as luxury lakeside resorts like the Grand Hotel Tremeso. And we're talking big luxury. These are like 1,500 euros per night rooms.
Yep.
And up. And lastly, there is Leno. It's home to Villa del Balbianello, one of the most famous and photogenic villas on the lake, often used as a film location.
Yeah. Well, which one is your favorite?
Well, I've only been to 3 of them so far, Varenna, Bellagio, and Menaggio. And I really like all 3, but would maybe rank them in that same order. I thought, Varenna is very charming, but also is Bellagio. But, it's hard they're all wonderful and they're all easy to get to. So you don't really have to pick. But, what did you think of the 2 you saw recently?
I think Bellagio was more idyllic. And then where did we go? Was that Tremezzo?
No, it was Varenna.
Oh, it was Varenna. I'm sorry. And Varenna was...
This, you guys, is the Davide that I have to deal with when we're traveling.
There you go.
Where am I? What are we doing?
I remember we taking a boat and going to this other town and have a fantastic lunch at our new friends. What was that restaurant again?
El Prato.
El Prato. There you go. No, I really liked Varenna too, but Bellagio was more idyllic. Especially, walking down those steps that everybody is putting on their TikToks and reels, and it was nice to be there. So
they're both lovely, especially at sunset. I took a picture and sent it to a friend, and she's like, "It looks like you took it off of AI." Like, I know, but I give credit to the sunset. And I've heard mixed reviews about Como. Now, you said you were there to buy a tuxedo. I'm sure you weren't really paying attention. And as a city, I think it kind of gets a little bit downplayed according, versus the other villages. But, I'm leaning to give it a chance and I do want to check it out. It's bigger. It has a larger historic centro and it has lots of ferries and boat tours available that, depart from Como. It's less expensive than other options because it is bigger and has more availability. And, overall, as I mentioned earlier, Lake Como is more chill and tranquil. It's not a huge nightlife, even in some of the more popular towns. So towns that are smaller would be even more chill and sleepy. So you just kind of have to know this about the lake. And I think the city of Como would probably offer the most nightlife of all of them.
Well, so how does someone get to Como? And does that influence where one chooses to stay there, or?
It does, actually. And, you can get to Lake Como by train, but it only goes to the southern cities and then travels north along the eastern side of the lake. Because of that, the city of Como and Varenna are the most reachable of the more popular towns that we talked about.
Okay.
To get to the others, you can either take a car service from Como or take the ferry from Como or Varenna. And that's not too huge of a hassle, but you have to, wait for the ferry and with your luggage. It just adds yet another step in the logistics. And the larger or more popular towns have hotels, some quite luxurious like the Grand Hotel Tremeso I mentioned, and others are more boutique-y. And of course, there are lots of apartments and cabins available. So, staying around Lake Como, and where you decide to stay really comes down to where, what type of accommodation you want, and then how easy is it to get to the accommodation, and if you're willing to pay for a car service or, manage the trains and the ferries. So, I was talking with the client and they're like, well, I heard from somebody that if once you're on the lake, it doesn't really matter. And, I completely agree with that. Once you're actually located in any part of the lake, all the other parts of the lake are easily accessible because of the ferry. But it's that initial arrival and departure that you need to think about is, especially if you don't want to rent a car.
Well, speaking of cars and car rentals, if you're thinking about to drive along the coast on the Lake Como, it's not for the faint of heart. So the roads are very narrow.
You are not kidding. Like, we just did this and I thought it to be just as scary as the Amalfi Coast. Like, I had forgotten about that. So thanks for reminding me.
I consider myself a good driver, and I've been driving in Italy for a long time. But that drive really scared me, especially on the way back. So anyway, just maybe a little warning. If you want to go by car, just hire a car service. They know what they're doing.
Okay.
All right. Well, okay. So overall, what does the Lake Como offer to tourists?
Well, Lake Como, simply stated, is where you go if you love the outdoors and want to be wowed by spectacular, jaw-dropping scenery. And, the activities are similar to other mountain and lake destinations of the world, even like northern Minnesota, right? Well, okay, minus the Alps.
Yes, minus the mountains.
Little difference there. But, overall, the activities can be bucketed into the following categories. First, there's, of course, general sightseeing and shopping. Each village has its own character, but they are similar in that they are quaint, they are charming, they have, great lake views. There's, lots of restaurants and bars along the shores that are great for relaxing and enjoying those views. You can, enjoy strolling along the shores and getting your steps in. There's cute churches and piazzas. And of course, there are walking tours available if you would like a guide to tell you more about the history. Next, Lake Como is famous for its impressive villas with beautiful manicured gardens. Like, I'm talking large homes, like these are mansions, and their gardens are like unimaginable. They're very manicured, they're beautiful. Bellagio has the Villa Melzi and the Villa Cerboloni. Varenna has Villa Cipresi and Villa Monastero, which personally is my favorite. Tremezzo has the Villa Carlotta. Leno has Villa del Babionello, which I mentioned, is famous for films like the James Bond movie Casino Royale was filmed there, as well as Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones was filmed there in 2002. And, these villas are majestic and they're famous and very popular for weddings and people going there to get their, proposals photographed and weddings photographed, wedding pictures. So beautiful, beautiful gardens. And as a gardener, I loved seeing all the different varieties of flowers and trees and ponds. Like, they're huge. And of course, Lake Como, you can't go there and not think about like getting on the water. It's the main attraction outside of, you're in the towns, but you need to get on the water. And the easiest and most affordable way to do so is to take the ferry. You're usually going to use it to get from one point to another on the lake, but you can also just take the extended version all over the lake. It's cheaper. You can get, a lot of the lake, distance covered sitting on the top and taking pictures, but you won't get any commentary. So, and to learn about the lake and get that guided experience, you need to get a private or a shared boat tour. There are many of them. And so as I was doing research, you then need to decide, do you want to do a sailboat? You can do a speedboat. You can do a yacht. You can do a Venetian wooden boat. Then you have to pick, which duration and which location do you want to go to on the lake. Some include stopping in a town or touring a villa. So lots of decisions as I'm planning these tours. And then you could, rent your own boat. Like we saw this when we were just there, down by the point of the lake in Bellagio. So if you're a skilled boat captain, you can rent your own boat and just cruise the lake and go swimming. And speaking of, there's lots of water sports available, such as kayaking and paddleboarding.
Cool. Well, how about other sports?
Well, outside of the water, of course, you're in nature. There's biking and hiking and rock climbing. Where there are mountains. This is, typical activities to be done. They're all over the lake. Brunate has the funicular, which is popular to get up the mountain, and then you can hike while you are up there with great views. And, All Trails, the app, is a great resource, as is each town's tourist information center, to learn about the popular hikes out of each location. And again, there are lots of guided tours available if you want to go with a group and a expert guide to take you from place to place.
But I think next time we go, we should do a picnic.
I think we should. And actually, I had friends just go there that I hoped plan a tour for, where they came and picked them up from Bellagio and took them to the top of the mountain, and they had a picnic with amazing selection of food. And I laughed because they were telling us they brought out the tagliere, which is like the charcuterie board, and they were thinking this was lunch. So they ate every single thing on the board, including the edible flowers.
Oh boy.
And then they started bringing out the other courses, and they're like, oh geez. They should have been paying attention to our food episode, where there's always more than one course and lots of food. So pace yourselves. And so along those lines, of course, there are cooking classes, either, in the cities. A lot of the restaurants have them. There are cooking schools, persons' homes. There are food tours and wine tours. Lots of things to do, especially it's known for the Valtellina region. Mm-hmm. And lastly, of course, there's Switzerland. That is an attraction. And I feel like a lot of people who come to Italy want to be able to say, oh, I hit another country as well. And so Switzerland is easy to add to your itinerary. You can do a day trip to Lugano. And what is also very popular is the Bernina Red Train. It's called the Bernina Express. And it's a renowned panoramic train journey that traverses the Swiss Alps, connecting Chur and Cerano.
It's Hur.
Okay.
I'm sorry. It's Hur.
Connecting Hur.
There you go.
And Tirano. The scenic route is celebrated for its breathtaking views and engineering marvels. I can't even imagine. So, it starts in Switzerland and then ends in Tirano, and probably goes in both directions. But it's 76 miles long and takes about 4 hours to complete. And bit of trivia, it has 55 tunnels and 196 bridges, showcasing, the impressive engineering. So I actually want to do this.
Yes, but we need to pick a day that we know it's going to be sunny. Yes. Otherwise, you will be just in a train in the fog.
Yeah, so. No, weather is key. It's almost everywhere in Italy, right? It's a completely different vibe if it's a beautiful day versus a rainy day, as, anywhere in the world. So you have to get lucky in these experiences. So, lastly, I'm going to talk about eating and drinking. We've got to talk about the food. And in many ways, it's similar to Milan. It's the same region. But I think we have to acknowledge that, Lake Como is known for more blending the northern Italian, the Alpine, and, the freshwater influences. Mm-hmm. It's a lake. So you're going to get a lot of freshwater fish. Yep. There's the misoltini. It's a dried and salted shad fish from the lake. It's not sure which one it is. I probably have eaten it and didn't know it. It's often grilled and served with polenta. There's risotto con pesce persico, with is basically perch. There's a white fish called lavaredo, often grilled and served in lemon and butter sauce, which is my favorite. Actually, Davide just made that last night with salmon.
Yes.
So a lot of great fish, and I probably have eaten it without knowing which type of fish I was eating. But again, also a lot of polenta-based dishes, more, different local cheeses. Taleggio is from the region, a soft-washed rind cheese from the nearby Valsassina Valley.
Yeah.
They have a lot of meat and game. This is not a surprise given all the wooded areas and the mountains. They have a beef braised in red wine, wild boar, and venison. And, the desserts in the region are miasha.
Okay.
Miashka.
Bread pudding. My favorite.
And
Less with the fruits.
less with the fruits, okay. And they have a torta di pane, another type of bread cake, sweetened and spiced. So they're local wines from the nearby region, like we said, Valtellina, which is known for the Nebbiolo-based reds. So Davide, as you can see, there is a ton to do in Lake Como. It just depends on what your interests are and what level of physical activity you want to take on. I have many clients who just want to chill and relax and enjoy the views and the beautiful towns and do a little shopping, a little boat riding, see the gardens. And others go there for, the full-on activity. Usually it's families with children who they want to get out hiking and biking and getting on the water and do sports. So what is great is it has everything to offer, all the different interests.
Yeah. So, wow, what an overview of Lake Como and Milano, Tanya. Let's conclude this episode with some of your tips. Tips from Tanya. So, Tanya, what words of wisdom do you have for us this week?
Well, first, I realized we haven't talked about timing, like when should you go to Milan and Lake Como? And, first, let's start with Milan. The great thing about cities is that they are open all year. So you can go in winter, and actually for Milan, it would be a great time to visit the churches and museums. And I may have mentioned this before, but Italy has like 2 periods of the year where they have huge sales, and January is one of them. So it would be a great time to do some shopping after Christmas when it's not crowded and get some really great deals in Milan. But Lake Como is definitely more seasonal, and more tourist attractions, and most tourist attractions and activities are only open from April to October. Winter can be really sleepy, and based on this last one I heard, it can be quite gray and overcast. So I'm not sure Lake Como is a great place to go during winter. April, May, and September, October are the shoulder seasons and would be cheapest and less crowded versus the prime months, June through August, when everybody, we're talking people from Switzerland, people from Italy, then you've got like international tourists. Everybody is at the lake, so you need to reserve in advance. Though I have to say, I was just booking rooms for July, and I was surprised that there was still some decent availability.
Now, I'm surprised too to hear that, Tanya.
Next tip relates to ferries and water taxis. And, I haven't run into any issues personally since I've only ever gone in early spring so far, but I learned from one of my tour operators that the lines at the ticket office can be quite long in the peak season. So, word of advice, buy your tickets online in advance. So the tickets are good for a specified journey and date, but they do not have a specific ferry, meaning you can go on any that are available. So if it's going from Verona to Bellagio one way, there are many of those throughout the day that you can then hop on. So you will still need to line up and hope to get on the ferry because they can only let on so many people, but at least it's one less line to stand in. And I also need to point out that water taxis are quite expensive. Like, it's amazing because you can see where you're needing to go. It's like a 20-minute boat ride, and they will charge 200 to 300 euros.
Yikes.
So make sure to look at the ferry schedule ahead of time so that you're not stuck in any one village after dinner, because many of the ferries quit around 8:30. Some are to 9 o'clock, but just check. Make sure you're not stuck in having to pay for a very expensive water taxi.
All right, but water taxis are available though.
They are, but you will pay for them.
Might be more expensive than the meal you just ate.
Likely.
All right.
Okay, so my third tip relates to travel in general. And I was reminded of this given the unexpected huge event in Rome for the Pope's funeral. And that is to say, and I tell this to all of my clients, like, we do all this work to have the perfect plan, but a plan is just a plan. So, it never gets executed perfectly. My rule of thumb is if it's 85 to 90% executed, I'm happy. But you need to think about needing to have some options and be flexible. Weather changes, you can't count on it. Energy levels, illness, crowds, all of this can have an impact, in huge events like an unexpected death of a pope. So have some alternate options in mind in case you need them. And, like for my clients last weekend, I was very happy to have great tour partners that were great to work with to make adjustments and ensure my clients had an incredible visit. So just don't be devastated if world events or weather doesn't go accordingly, and be prepared to have some backups.
Well, Tanya, thank you so much for this episode's tips. And also thank you, audience, for listening from all over the world. If you want to join our conversation on our Facebook page, just go to Experience Italy with Friends. That's our Facebook page group. And
would love to hear from you. So please, post your thoughts, provide us some suggestions of what you want to hear about in the future. But to conclude this episode, I hope you really enjoyed learning about Milan and Lake Como and have been inspired to add them to a future itinerary. We are going to be going to the island of Ischia on Sunday, and we'll be there for a week celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to finally go to the island and spend some time there, but we'll be back in 2 weeks to tell you all about it.
All right. Arrivederci.
Ciao, ciao, everyone. We hope you've enjoyed Experience Italy with Friends. If you like the podcast, remember to follow us and leave a review letting us know what you found to be the most helpful. And if you want expert advice or assistance in creating your own immersive and authentic experience in Italy, visit us at www.amicivacations.com.